Remember a couple weeks ago when the Great Spirit rained down magic from the sky? When we got a reminder that we live in an amazing and active solar system?
The pillars in the sky you could see, and they were shifting, and then one side of the sky was a little bit green and the other side was a little bit red, and I guess that's just the particles from the sun interacting with the nitrogen and the oxygen, and it's cool to see that color differential.
What we call the auroras were created by what they call a coronal mass ejection from the sun, or CME.
When that eruption occurs, the flare erupts, we're watching it, the sun's 93 million miles away, it hurls out this coronal mass ejection. So it's 1 billion tons of plasma gas shot out into space, sometimes right towards Earth, and it has its own magnet.
The magnetic field around the Earth that's generated by molten iron in the Earth's core is our vigilant defender, redirecting the energy to the poles. People are monitoring space weather 24/7 because the effects of a large storm can have devastating effects on the human race. The aurora that lit up our sky last month was considered a large storm. It was well anticipated and damage was minimal.
Now, the event that occurred last month was from a sunspot group that was about 17 times the size of Earth.
But in 1859, what is called the Carrington event sent out so much energy that the newfangled telegraph, humanity's first venture into electronic communication, got fried and caught fire. So was last month's storm that big?
It was not. It was certainly a big event. On our scale, so this was a geomagnetic storm, and on our scale of 1 through 5, 1 being minor, 5 being extreme, it was a 5-level storm.
It was the biggest in 20 years. Thankfully, we're constantly developing new ways to prepare.
We have a spacecraft out at what's called the Lagrange point. It's 1 million miles out towards space. It's our sentinel in space, and it sits there. When the CME hits that, now we're dissecting the CME. Now I know what the magnetic field looks like, but guess what? I got 15 minutes before it hits Earth.
Thankfully, we have enough technology these days to not only be able to forecast these storms, but get a good idea of their intensities hours to even days beforehand. So what happens when a storm looks like it's going to do more than just paint our skies?
The storm last week, just to throw out a number, was around a minus 50 or so nanotesla. That's going to produce a weak G5, and that's what happened. If I see minus 100 or minus 120, then I am worried. Then I'm on the phone talking to a lot of people, including the Situation Room at the White House.
In meteorology, we have a pretty good idea how big a storm can actually get. But with space weather,
how big is big? If I said to you as a meteorologist, I bet you we can get a hurricane next year with 2,000 mile per hour winds, you're going to laugh because you know the physical boundaries. We understand how big it can get. We don't have that luxury in space weather.
We're in a period called solar maximum, so there's more to come. Thankfully, we can handle large storms like this with more awe than fear. Because come on, how beautiful is that?
That is going to happen again, because when we get the G4 storms, and I can promise you we will see more of them, that produces aurora typically visible, certainly the northern tier states down into the mid-latitudes.
Finally, here's something I really didn't know. When Darrell, Emily, and I blow a forecast, we hear about it from the viewers. But when the space weather forecast is blown, it's pigeon breeders that give them the most grief. The solar storm can actually mess with their internal compasses, so much so that they never return home.
Some of these pigeons of particularly good breeding sell for over $1 million. So now I appreciate it if you got a particularly good bird and it gets lost because Bill and the people at the Space Weather Prediction Center produced a bad forecast and you lost your several $100,000 bird. We hear about it.
For Central Oregon Daily News, I'm space geek and Earth weather dork, Scott Elnes.